A Promised Land. Barack Obama's new book reads like a marathon. Its full text running over 1,200 pages in PDF, 768 pages in hardcover print. Written retrospectively, the book not only offers deep insights into the writer's own mind and soul, but it also brings to light the generally hidden, ugly aspects of politics in the US as well as around the world, with America as a key player on the global stage. The book opens with a short narrative of his daily morning walk from his residence, the White House, to his office in its vicinity. The former US president recounts his frequent small talk with the garden staff while on his way to the office. After this brief intro, starts a long tale of the journey that ultimately landed him in the highest office of the country. Picking up the thread from his early childhood, he recalls the days he and his mother spent in Indonesia while living with his stepfather. His mother, though herself from a white family, had previously got married to Obama's father, Obama Sr., a Kenyan black man who had studied economics at Hawaii University. However, they divorced soon after the birth of their son. His father went back to Kenya, leaving him in the custody of his mother, and visited them only once after that. According to the writer, it was an experience apart, living in a majority Muslim country like Indonesia, an experience which long afterward his political rivals would use as a reference to claim that he was a Muslim. He goes on to relate the details of his early schooling and an insatiable interest in book reading, which played a central role in his academic progress from school days to college life. His maternal grandparents were a Scottish couple who, along with his mother, left an indelible mark on his mind and personality. After the family shifted from Indonesia to Hawaii to permanently settle there, the young Obama began to perceive the prevalent glaring hard reality of racial divide in the society. At the same time, he also used to wonder about his own identity as a member of typical African American class, often asking himself whether he qualified for the racial label or not. Thus, living through ambiguity and uncertainty, he graduated from Columbia University in 1983. Up to then, he had hardly ever thought about politics, to say the least about joining it. Not knowing exactly as to which profession he wanted to pursue, he moved to Chicago to start his community organizing mission, an altruistic self-assignment which gave him a chance to regularly interact with the deprived and underprivileged people. Each one of them had got some story of misfortune to share with him. The more he listened to them, the surer he began to feel about his future plans to provide relief. It began to dawn on him that he could help such helpless people of his country only from a position of power. However, it was a pretty long, tortuous way to go, as well risky for a black American with no family background in politics. Moreover, the higher echelons of power politics like presidency and its sister executive apparatus had for centuries remained a perpetual monopoly of the white majority. A few years later, after the commencement of his community organizing work, he joined Harvard Law School in 1988, where, for the first time, his serious romance with the notion of politics started shifting gears. He became the first ever black president of the Harvard Law Review. This initial distinction would pave the way for the rest of his career, which shortly brought his future life partner, Michelle, on board as they got married in 1992. Continuing his story of political gains, the writer gives an account of his first ever election campaign for a legislative body that ultimately earned him a seat on the Illinois Senate in 1997. where he remained till 2004. But during all this while, he mostly found himself ineffective, utterly unable to help those whose misery had inspired him to go into politics, because the actual power center and real decision making still lay beyond his reach. At the same time, his wife also began to behave crossly with him for remaining away from home for several days due to the long sessions of the Senate. In 2004, first a victory in the March primary of the US Senate, and later his electrifying speech at the Democratic National Convention proved a turning point in his political career, as he drew the national attention so much so that within the next 4 years, which is by 2008, he had become the hot favorite Democratic candidate for the presidential election. Cobbling up an excellent campaign team, he spelled out his vision of hope and change, which immediately grabbed the attention of the American public and saw him through to the White House. During the campaign, he also came to witness firsthand the racial polarization and hatred at its worst. His white opponents and their supporters wielded all the slur at their disposal to malign him. However, his own support base kept expanding not only among the African Americans, Latinos, and Asian Americans, but also with the moderate whites. As he himself admits, populist politics carries a very heavy baggage of steadily soaring aspirations, expectations, and demands of your electorate. With every passing day of his first term as the president, his concern for those who had brought him into power kept haunting him. He desperately wanted to serve them, but in many cases, he had to turn to the national legislature and solicit hard to come by support of the Republican hawks for the passage, even of the laws related to public welfare.